It's an opportunity to be here, and the topic of my presentation is content creation and distribution, strategies for revenue in the modern media landscape. Strategies for revenue in the modern media landscape. Assuming we could see the presentation, I just had a slide with my face just to be familiar with who I am. Okay. I will just proceed to the next slide to define what content creation is. When I tried researching this topic, content creation is very vast. And because of social media and the influx of influencers and the mix of the entertainment industry with the social media space, the concept of content has been extended, very much extended. But for the purpose of the audience here and for the purpose of the value that we want to derive, I'm going to be talking about content creation as it relates to our field and how it pertains to us. So I've read a lot about content creation, and one of my most respected creators, his name is Tim Denning. He writes from the US, defines content in a very simple way. And I just shared it on the screen for us to look at, because if I try defining what content is, it's going to be like a textbook. So he says you have to change your thinking about content creation. Content creation is about context. It's about your story. It's about the people you know. It is about the books you have read. It is about the advice you agree or disagree with and your opinion on daily matters. So oftentimes we feel that we have to be specialists in something to be able to create content. But what the social media space has shown us over a long period of time is that content is about daily lives. It's about just what you are and what you want the world to know about you. And we've seen a diverse range of what content is today. I'm on slide 3. And what content is today, from the very awkward to the regular, from the aspirational to the downward despicable. But content is what content is. So we'll go to the next slide. Content is king. And I'm going to be highlighting a couple of things that I think content is. I think content is creation, is stories with a conclusion and a takeaway. When we tell a story and we land on a point, we teach a moral lesson, or we inspire people to do something. That is content. Content is simply your experience traveling around. In this age, we have bloggers who cook and tell us what the experience is like, who travel to places and tell us what it looks like. And they are sort of content. Who would think that someone would sit in a space or stand in a space? Let me use the right word. She stood in a space and cooked for over 100 hours. And that was content that the whole country was fixated on for a number of days. It's about your experience. Content is who you are. And we've seen content creators who are just carrying metals in a gym, content creators who are dancers, content creators who are whatever, mixed genders. Content creation is the context around you, what you know, the minor details and subtleties that you probably overlook. And that's the reason why we have investigative journalists in our midst. There are things we see every day that we don't take very seriously. And someone takes the time to look at the news within the news, those things that we often overlook, and create it as a content. And we have some of them in our social space today. And content creation is business and entrepreneurship. Beyond all the entertainment value, beyond the social aspect of content creation is business. And we've seen today that, especially in a country like Nigeria, some of our richest popular people are people who create content. And I was seeing a story some weeks ago where a popular content creator, I called him a comedian when we met at an event, and he said he's a content creator, Bro Shaggy, saying he makes about $4 million monthly. That's like the revenue of some companies in Nigeria. Content creation is business and is entrepreneurship. But importantly, content creation is the backbone of all businesses. As journalists, we know that whatever we write about people or about businesses can make or mar them. And we've seen businesses that have ridden on the wave of media exposure. In this tech space, we know of the story of Terra. There's Terra. Terra is a crypto company in South Korea. It's owned by a South Korean. He also has a US identity. And Terra was riding on the wave There was also FTX. How many of us heard about when FTX crashed, right? For many of us, we can't see what crypto is. We've not touched it. We are not using it for transaction. I'm not sure anyone bought fuel in their car using crypto. But there is the social media buzz. And with time, we all became familiar with what crypto is. And many of us put our money in it. I'm sure some of us did not, but a lot of people had their cash in a company that they cannot see, buying a currency that they cannot touch, in the hope that one day those currencies will make them richer than they are. That is the power of media. Content is the backbone of all businesses. I dare say content is the backbone of life. It's the backbone of politics. It's the backbone of human behavior. It's the backbone of society. And I dare say that we all have, as long as we are content creators, we have the power to shape brand identity, to garner interest about something, to retain and engage audience, to establish authority in a space, and project legitimacy and build trust with content. That's the power of content. And talking about projecting legitimacy, please let's go to the next slide. I'm just going to trying to read about the development of content over the years. I had a lot of resources to look at, and I just tried highlighting the growth of content. I tried doing it by decades, centuries, 100 years. So the earliest track that we can have about content creation was the printing of the newspaper in the 1800s. And I put some dates here about publications. But during this period, during these 100 years, all that we know about content, which is storytelling, was all that we could see in the newspapers. In those years, people could see papers 3 days after, 5 days after. But what matters is that they are reading the story of someone else that they cannot see. And that was all we knew about content creation. But it began to take a new turn in 1895 when people started creating specific magazines that are not about stories, they are not about news, but about lifestyle. And you have magazines that focused on health, that focused on psychology, that focused on education, that focused on entertainment. You even had Playboy magazine, where people get some fantasies by just looking at printing. But it was all in print. Let's look at the next slide. Then in the 90s, things began to change, because what technology has done for us is that made things that we do regularly become widespread. We can scale from just one point, and the speed of information became faster. That was all that technology did for us. And in the 90s, we saw the advent of more information travel became very much faster, and we had soap operas on radio. We have magazines that were meant to sell specific items. I talked about that. But the 90s wasn't really, as much as we had so much innovations in this space, it's not as fast, as beautiful as what we had in the subsequent years. So let's go to the next one. Then we had the creation of World Wide Web. In those years, if a magazine was printed in the US and you're going to read it in Africa, it might take a period of 3 to 6 months. But the internet became an equalizer for everybody at the same time. And yeah, we might not have been familiar with the internet in Africa as far as the Americans are. But as early as 1996, Bill Gates wrote an essay saying that content is king. And the founder of Apple, Steve Jobs, showed us what content could do in sales and marketing. And Apple's advertisements weren't really about the device that you want to buy. It was about the lifestyle that Apple was projecting. So look at the advertisement for the Apple Music app gadget. I've forgotten the name that they call it. iPod, thank you. Flat, very small. Steve Jobs comes to the stage and says, in the olden days, if you really want to listen to music, and for those of us that are very older than I am, you remember that you have to buy the plate. Yes, you buy the album, buy the one for Fela, buy the one for Sonny Ade, buy the one for... But now you have a device that you can play music as you want. So if you release an album of 12 songs, I might like 6, I don't like 6, I can download the 6 on my iPod and really not have the other 6. That was the value that Apple was selling, and that was the value that they pushed forward, and that was what content became. Please, let's go to the next slide. Then with the advent of the World Wide Web, we had the .com era, and that was what brought us to what we have today. Facebook, 2004. We had Apple unveil the iPhone in 2007, and everybody had access to internet on their hands. Before then, what we knew about the dot-com era was a corporate space. Companies, security outfits had access to internet. But beginning from 2007, with the release of the iPhone, we began to have the World Wide Web on our hands. Let's go to the next slide. As much as internet gave us that capacity, it also gave power to a new generation of creators. And Instagram came in 2010. And the conversation left. When Instagram first started, you could only upload videos of 15 seconds. And people made people laugh. People passed information in 15 seconds. Then Instagram made it 30 seconds. People had the liberty to do more. People did skits in 30 seconds. And content took a different dimension. Then we began to have influencer marketing. And in 2016, another app came on the space called TikTok. And TikTok defined everything by videos. Imagine an app that you can open. Unlike Facebook, you read some text, you see some pictures, you see some video. But TikTok, if you're there for 5 hours, you're watching videos for 5 hours. And people began to communicate in a different way. And the report from Google in 2021 says that every 60 seconds, people upload a video of 60 hours worth in every 60 seconds. It means, but in each second, people upload 1 hour worth of video at once. And I was trying to look at the volume of videos that were uploaded in 2022. And Google did not give an exact number, but it said of all files that we have online, 61% are entirely videos. The implication is people are consuming more videos than other forms of content as we speak today. Okay, let's go to the next slide. At this point, we're going to look at what the opportunity is for us as practitioners in this space. Many of us were trained to write. Some of us were trained to speak. Some of us were trained to appear on audiovisual platforms like TV. But the content scope, the content space is changing by the minute. And just before I left my house, I was on TikTok and I saw a live stream by Splash FM, reading the Nigerian news in Yoruba language. The only time I listened to Splash FM was when I was in Obafemi Awolowo University. And sometimes when I'm traveling, as soon as I get to Ibadan, because I like listening to the Koko Inuwe Ring, that's the name, I will tune into Splash FM, especially if I'm around Ibadan, let's say around 9 a.m. in the morning. But now, I could watch that same program on TikTok and not listen to the radio. And I just looked at the top of the TikTok live stream and I saw that we are 390 people watching that live stream. There might be some people in the US, some people in the UK, some people in other parts of the world watching a live stream of a broadcaster whose limits prior to the advent of live stream was just Ibadan. And that is the power of social media. I have listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 10 channels here that I feel that this encompasses what content is today. And if you're not playing in any of these spaces, you might be missing out something. The first basic one is blog articles, but there is also white papers and reports where you take information, where you coalesce information that you've gathered and create it into a book that people can download. Then you talk about podcasts, email newsletter, videos, and all of that. I don't know which that we are playing with, but I'm going to share my experience from TechNext. Please, let's go to the next slide. And let me just briefly talk about this, the content of the future. The previous presenters had spoken about ChatGPT. A friend of mine did a brief experiment with ChatGPT. He generated some tech articles, about 5 to 6, with ChatGPT, uploaded it on the website with pictures and all of that. And he applied for Google Ads. And Google Ads approved the website, right? Even if it was for some days. People read the articles, people saw the ads, was able to make some revenue. So the experiment was just that we could create a site, we could upload content without hiring journalists. So if you're saying that there is that threat from ChatGPT, it is actually real. Yeah. And with the advent of fiber networks, everyone had access to internet. And I was invited as a guest to speak about ChatGPT on Channels TV, and I was saying that I was trying to describe how the technology works. It pulls data from different sources, coalesces it into one single document or product, and shares it. So let me explain. Before now, if you want to do a research work, the easy way, so let's say I want to do a research on Nelson Mandela. The easy way for me to do it, let's say in the 70s, for those of us that went to universities in 70s, 80s, and 90s, I was still a child then. I know you will go into the library, look for, they have different segments in the library, two of us, right? Africa, Europe, you go to the part of Africa, find South Africa, pick out books, read one page here, you mark it with a biro, then you look for your own documents and compile all that you have garnered from those different books and produce it as a copy. This is your research work. Then in my generation, when I went to school, when I went to IFE in 2008, you could just go to internet and search Nelson Mandela. Then there is something called Wikipedia. Wikipedia brings Nelson Mandela. All that I'm supposed to read from different textbooks, Wikipedia had put it together in one place. I could just take my biro or photocopy whatever I see from there, copy and paste, photocopy, and I produce a document. So something that you're supposed to do with hard labor for 7 days, 14 days, depending on how fast you are, I can do it in just 1 minute, right? And I will get the same mark. In fact, I might get better than you because I will have more information on that Wikipedia page than the number of books that you can read. So now imagine a tool that has access to millions of web pages across the world, including something that was just written about Mandela yesterday. And that web page can source information from these different pages, put it together in one source document, and share it with you. Faster, easier than any journalist can do. But ChatGPT has challenges. For some of the research that we did in my own at TechNext, we realized that there are some claims that ChatGPT makes. Okay, so let's say I tweet or I write something false about Nelson Mandela on Twitter or wherever. ChatGPT is going to take that information as a source document, add it to the research file, but it's not true because there is really no way for ChatGPT to verify if my information is correct or not. Yeah, so we saw quotes or descriptions about people in Nigeria that were not true. So we know ChatGPT has limitations for now. They might fix it, but it has limitations for now. The other thing is when ChatGPT gives you references, those references might not be correct. There are those sites that you will click on and they will not open and all of that. But the truth is that threat is there and it's coming. Before now, if you want to design a website, the best thing to do is to get an engineer. You worship them, adore them, buy them drink, beg them, do all of that. And at the end of the day, your site might not work, it will crash. You go to his house, give him beer and all of that. But now you can use a easy software like WordPress, right? Create a site by yourself. There are even other platforms like Wix that you can just drag and pull, design a website, upload your content, and that's it. Some of those developers that remained at that level of creating just websites are no longer getting the jobs. Yeah, for you to remain as a developer, you have to be doing higher stuff. And ChatGPT is also competing for that space. The point is, if you as a journalist, you do the basic work, just gather information from different sources, compile and publish, there's going to be a point where you will no longer be needed. There's something that ChatGPT and some of these platforms cannot do, and that is why I put a picture of my team in the center. That is the human angle. Content that is focused on people. I was reading something on Business Day, and they said, so the headline of that story is Seun Kuti, when a man bites a dog. You know, the thing that we're used to in Nigeria is police slaps civilians. But in this case, civilian slaps police. So it became a national issue because it's something that is unusual. People are still going to consume human content, human-focused content, more than whatever content machine can generate, because life is about people, right? I want to read about that mother of three that went to school at 50 and became a lawyer at 57 and a son at 65 than a regular story about anything. And there's going to be a point where machines' contribution will become consistent and predictable. And that is where the human element comes in. So people, the future is about people. growing up, I had uncles who worked in the media houses. And I know that for you to become a journalist, you need to get some certain trainings. After getting those trainings, you need to be attached to professionals so that you can get some mentorship. But not everybody is a journalist. Something is happening on Tomberland Bridge, we all bring out our phones and we record. I know when Linda Ikeji first came out, an Insta blog, my uncle was very mad at him. What kind of rubbish reporting is this? I was just looking at him across the table like, Insta blog has millions of followers. And that is where some people source their story. So it has a bad side and a good side. The regular platforms, the Punch of this world, Vanguard, this day, you have a lot of competitions. And the bar is now very low. Anybody can enter. The entry level is very simple. But the good part is we don't really need to have people go through a lot of journalism training to become journalists. The bad side is there's a threat to our job. Almost everybody wants to do our job. The good side is we can easily source talent from some of those people. TechNext has a writer, his name is Danny. We hired him before he got to the university. How did we discover Danny? We saw that Danny observes things in the tech space and writes stories about it on his Twitter page. And one of us just saw his Twitter handle and we reached out to him and we hired him. He's passionate about journalism, even before getting to university. And he has been testing it, he has been writing things, he has been taking pictures, and he has the idea. So we brought him in, we started working with him. And Dami had been our longest serving staff and he has done a lot of interesting things. The truth is, we need, for those of us that are professionals in this space, we now need to have that understanding that the mix in our office spaces will begin to change in the coming years. And the kind of people that will want to work with us might not be the regular journalists that will wear suits and native. They rather have 3 quarters, come in by 12, leave by 2, and it does not affect their productivity. Please, let's go to the next slide. Let's just skip this because I wanted to just say, okay, let me just go through it. The story of TechNext. We started from 2017. And at that point, what was content to us was just on our website. And our website did well. At some point, it took us a while. People started reaching out to us to ask for sponsorship and they started paying money. But we didn't go too far. And someone reached out to us and said, you guys are not doing enough. How about getting the news to people instead of people coming to your site to read? So we created a newsletter app, right, that pulls together all the news of our site and shares to people's email directly. We were still enjoying that. In 2019, our views grew significantly. We had over 60,000 unique readers and it was cool. But in 2020, COVID-19 struck and a lot of conversations changed. And we had a physical office space just a month before COVID-19 struck. And we realized that the conversation in that year was about COVID-19. Then NSAS came in October. And we realized it's not just sufficient for people to come to our site. It's not sufficient for us to send the news to their emails. We also need to interact with the people because the people are the source of the content. So our team was on the field while the NSAS protest was happening, interviewing people and all of that. Then that was not sufficient. When we got to 2021, we realized that we have a lot of readers. Imagine having 60,000 monthly unique readers. It means 60,000 people are coming to our site every month to read what we're writing, but we don't know them. So we decided that we were going to create our first event, and we announced. We did the event on a Thursday evening, and we had over 1,000 people attend, right? We were able to put faces to people who read our stories, and those people were able to put faces to the people who write the stories. And that was where events started. And in year 2020, we did 2 of those major events, but we also realized that video is the way forward. So some of our stories, we do them as videos, explainers, and we started doing podcasts. And the dynamics of our team has changed. When we first started, the entire team were journalists working remotely. But now, almost half of the team are videographers, graphic designers, and all of that. Because people are visual. They no longer read the 1,500 stories. They want to hear it as podcasts. They want to see designs, and they want to watch videos. So let's go to the next slide. Now, the next part of my presentation is distribution. And this is an article by Peter Imler in Forbes in 2019. If you recall that in the previous slide, I talked about an article written by who? Who can remember?
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates in 1996, and he said content is king. Then somebody wrote a response in 2013 in Forbes and said content is king, but distribution is queen, and she wears the pants. It's not just sufficient for you to do fantastic stories, create beautiful videos. If people are not viewing them, then it's nothing. So let's go to the next slide. And I know a lot of us know this. I'm just going to go through it. There are three key parts to content distribution. One is own media, your own platform. How many followers you have on Twitter? How many followers you have on Facebook? Then there is the end channel. You've written a fantastic story about a company, they decide to share it, or you wrote an investigative piece that affects everybody and everybody is sharing it. Because you've done a lot of work, you held the visibility. And the last one is the paid channel. Those people that you reach out to, you offer an exchange of value or you give them cash and they publish your content. Next one. So for a lot of reasons, many platforms that I know, we only deal with the owned channel. Some of us are not as powerful as Punch and Channels. Channels has millions of followers on YouTube, for instance. So if Channel publishes their content, everybody will see it. But for those of us, I know some of us are CEOs, some of us are aspiring to be CEOs. We have to make use of the three types of channels. Otherwise, we can't really go very far. And for the first one, for instance, I was just talking about own channels. So this is for TechNext. We have 105,000 unique users. It actually has gone to 150,000 now. We have 90,000 newsletter subscribers that receive our newsletters every day. We have over 100,000 social media followers. And for our events database, we have over 10,000 people who want to attend. But beyond that, we have earned media. So we deliberately write about people. So this is someone who posted our story from Rwanda. This is a company in Nigeria. And these are some other platforms who've paid or who've had exchange of value and they wrote our story. This is Business Day. This is Nairametrics. We cannot work in isolation because that is what it is. The space has its strengths and weaknesses. You have your strengths and weaknesses. The space has its strengths and weaknesses. And your own niche might have its own limitation. So that's just what it is. The next slide. Having said that about distribution, whatever it is that we're doing, either you're creating content, you're distributing content, the main aim of it all is to make money. And someone that I respect so much says that turnover is vanity. When you look at the numbers and you say, for those of us in tech space, we've seen a lot of startups that raise $100 million and the next year they're shutting down. Is vanity, right? Profit is sanity. It's good that you sell and you make profit, but liquidity is reality. Cash is king. That people pay for the content is what is most important. So it's not just sufficient that we have 100,000 followers, that we have 1 million views. How much are we making from that 1 million views? And so let's go to the next slide. I don't want to talk so much stories, but this is what worked for us as TechNext. I shared it by the size of the ball, so you just have an idea of how much this brings to us, right? And you can see that the biggest is event sponsorship. People sponsor our events or events that we partner in. So it's not just sufficient that as a broadcaster, there is this group of guys that do sports show on Nigeria Info. Femi and the gang. And you see Champions League finals, they go to a particular bar and they broadcast from there and people, it's not, in this age and time, it's not sufficient for you to be a beautiful broadcaster. People need to be able to associate the face with the name. You can partner with events creators. You can be an MC. You necessarily do not have to be paid. And sometimes you can organize your own event. Just an hangout with a popular name. People will really want to meet you. And we started our event idea in 2021. We had a conference. It was a crypto event and we had about 6 sponsors with a lot of money. Then the next year we had another crypto event and we had a lot of sponsors. That space is suffering a lot of shock, and that talks about dynamism. And what we did was create some other sort of events. In the next slide, I'm going to show you a picture. Please go back to that slide just a picture of the previous slide. Sorry, up, instead of going, thank you. The previous one. Yes, these are other forms of money that we make. The easy one is paid content. People come and say they want to drop a story. They pay you for it. Digital ads, social channels, media war. I want to talk about media world just briefly. It's easy for you to say, I create a site, I write a fantastic piece, and I put a wall. If you don't pay me, you won't read the story. There are platforms that do that, like Business Day, like QZ, like Bloomberg. From my experience, it is very difficult here in Africa. I've written a very we did an investigative piece about the logistics sector, and we published that story. And I mean, after leaving your system, you'll be like, let me just go and take a shower. Like, this is a very interesting story. And you come back. So I was just checking Google News, and I saw exactly the same story, the same headline, the same content, listing as number 1 on Google News. I was crazy, like, did we write this story together? Then I reached out to the owner of the platform that you didn't even mention that you saw this story on TechNext, and the person was apologizing and put a link and all of that. Truth is, there's really nothing peculiar to you. That's the truth. I mean, there are a lot of tools. There is a tool where if I come to your site, I can't copy your content, I can only read. I also have a tool that I can use to deactivate that tool. So if I pay 100 naira to view that story, I could just copy it, post it on my own blog, and people will come and read it from there. Why would they come and read it from you? So it's a problem. It's also, I think it's also the factor that we are not very rich in Africa. Many of us do not appreciate paying a premium for something. We want to learn for free. We want to get this for free. We want to get that for free. So it might be difficult. That was why after a while, we tried it for a while and we stopped. We tried it around 2019. It did not really work and we stopped, because you write a story, you publish it, and while you are expecting that, oh, people will pay to read the story, you just see that story also published by another platform, and that's it. Second is I'm realizing that was why we went to event sponsorship. So a lot of companies want to sell to people, especially when you're speaking with the right audience. Say, for instance, your stories are being read by people who are the high-earning people in society, maybe Gen Zs, tech guys, young people. A lot of companies want to sell to these people, and they would also want to reach out to you. So you see reasons why people like Mr. Macaroni get a lot of sponsorship, because they are talking to the kind of generation that people want to talk to. So that to the next one. So one of the things we did was organize an event that is strictly for founders and C-level executives. We don't have more than 100 in a room, and we bring in 2 speakers. So the first one we did in March had Mr. Abubakar Suleiman, the CEO of Sterling Bank, and this young tech CEO, the CEO of Quora, and we had about 60 people in the room. The next one will be happening by June 8th, and we already have a sponsor for it. And the sponsor paid a significant amount, knowing that the people that we are going to have in a room are people who most likely want to buy what they are selling. So event sponsorship is good. It has a lot of opportunities. And these are people that even if they read your site, they can associate a name with a face. They could also bring businesses to you tomorrow. So let's go to the next slide. Lastly, I wouldn't say that we don't have challenges in our space, right? We have a lot of challenges. I'm just going to highlight the challenge here. I might not be able to solve them for you, but you just need to have that at the back of your mind. That first, we have a macroeconomic effect. No matter what you say, no matter how brilliant your ideas are, no matter how much you have, no matter how enthusiastic your staff are, they are going to be affected by the fuel subsidy palaver. They will enter transport at the higher cost. They will stay at the bus stop for more. So you really need to think about how you can figure that out. Foreign direct investment is really going down. So a lot of the companies that typically spend a lot on marketing are not really doing that. So you have to be extremely creative and be like in the top 1% for you to really get that part of the pie. The FX fluctuation. So like my own company, most of our hostings are on Google, and Google does not accept Naira. Right? So the same $1,000 that you buy for 500,000 today might be 750,000 tomorrow. These are challenges that only God and maybe a new president can solve for us, right? But it's a challenge. Second one is the industry maturity. Yeah. So if you check out other countries, when you see one of the richest men in America wants to contest for president is Michael Bloomberg. He's a media CEO, right? I'm not sure you have many media CEOs in Nigeria that are rich enough to contest for president. Maybe Raymond Dokwesi that is dead. The truth is, Our media space is largely dominated by political players. People who set up media platforms set it up because they have an agenda. They want to speak for a group, or they want to position themselves to be the spokesperson for a group, right? We also have, our space is also dominated by foreign platforms. So you have BBC, Al Jazeera, and all of that. You write a story, BBC write a story, your story is forgotten, everybody reads about BBC. That's the way it is. Then government and entertainment industry flows. So I went to an event last week. I was invited to the Africa Day event. I remember that 2 years ago when I went to Africa Day event, it was dominated by tech people. Yeah, Google invites their friends, partners once in a year for Africa Day. All of us will talk. Google does a panel conversation on what they are offering. But this year, when I look at the hall, it was filled up with people like MC Macaroni, Brother Shaggy, all of them. They were all there making noise, dancing, drinking, and all of that. Who has the highest views on YouTube? Not them. Who gets the highest art? Not them. If they all decide to move to TikTok, YouTube is going to suffer for it. And many of us were not in the room. So we might not consider it, but these people are significant, a significant alternative to the media platform. If people are not reading your platform, they're probably watching a Mr. Shaggy's skit or something. And with the advent of someone like MC Macaroni, Mr. Macaroni, I miss it together, Mr. Macaroni, into politics. He was strongly against Tinubu and Sanwo-Olu and all of that. Maybe in subsequent elections, politicians will really pay attention to those social media spaces and have interactions more with celebrities and influencers and content makers than journalists. Because if MC Macaroni says something about Tinubu, most people will believe it than if we write about it. So we really need to think about it. How do we become alternative to those platforms? Lastly, our market is a commoditized market. And oftentimes when I go to events and I see journalists come around, you have them in a large number, you are paid to attend this event, you're given a certain sum so that you can report a story. It limits your creativity. You know there are questions you're supposed to ask this person, but you can't ask because you don't want to be taken out of the list and all of that. It's a rat race. And the crazy thing about rat race is, at the end of the day, we are all rats. That's the truth. Nobody respects the ecosystem if we cannot create independent content and stand for who we are. There will always be someone who can offer your service cheaper. If as a journalist, what you collect is 10,000 per event, somebody will collect 5,000, someone else will collect 2,500, someone will only take recharge card. So just have a premium standard that you will not take. I think these are the challenges that we really need to look at. And we need to just create an identity for ourselves, create a brand, and produce the content that represents our brand. Thank you very much.